It's September 4th, 1999. We're in Houston, Texas, where the celebration has already begun. The hometown Comets have a 2-point lead on the New York Liberty with just seconds remaining in Game 2 of the WNBA Championship. Barring a miracle, Houston is about to sweep this best-of-3 series and build upon their dynasty. Maybe you know what's about to happen. But before we watch the next few seconds, we should look back at the dominance of this Houston powerhouse, at their recent heartache, at the path of the underdog Liberty, and at the events of this wild game. We should rewind. You see that? That's confetti. The buzzer hasn't sounded, but it's already party time at the Compaq Center here in Houston. Everyone's reacting to what just happened. Tina Thompson's tough, pivoting bank shot to put the Comets up 2 points with just seconds remaining. But the basis for Houston's confidence, their excitement, goes back much further. Let's meet the Comets. These Comets were built to dominate, kind of by accident. This is just the 3rd season of WNBA play. It's early enough in league history that franchises are still working off decisions the league made for them. At its outset, the WNBA seeded its 8 teams with players who distinguished themselves in college, in the 1996 Olympics, and in foreign leagues. This wasn't a draft per se. WNBA President Val Ackerman led the process, distributing talent to stoke competition and marketability. Cheryl Swoopes was one of those initial allocated players. Swoopes had ranked among the top scorers for the gold medal winning Team USA in '96, and she'd played some pro ball in Europe. But before all that, Swoopes grew up in Brownfield, Texas, then led Texas Tech to the 1993 NCAA Championship. So, easiest decision ever. The league made Swoopes a Houston Comet. This same logic brought Compton-born, USC-educated Lisa Leslie to the Los Angeles Sparks. And a gentle stretch of that logic put recent University of Connecticut juggernaut Rebecca Lobo on the New York Liberty. We'll come back to Lobo. Beyond regional appeal, Ackerman and company did their best to disperse the rest of the 16 allocated players equitably, 2 for each of the 8 franchises. Houston's second allocated player was Cynthia Cooper. Cooper had no real connection to Texas, but she'd put up godlike scoring numbers in college and in European leagues, dating back to the 80s. The Comets had themselves a 34-year-old rookie. Past the allocation stage, the teams got to pick for themselves. Each selected 2 elite experienced players. The Comets got a couple distinguished veterans of overseas leagues. And then they had a regular old amateur draft. The Comets won the first ever draft lottery, so they made the first ever number 1 pick and used it to select Thompson, an LA-born forward who co-starred with Lisa Leslie in high school and college. Houston had a nice foundation to start, plus a legendary coach in Van Chancellor, but not an obvious contender at the outset. For one thing, Cheryl Swoopes was pregnant during all of this. After giving birth to her son in June, Swoopes made both headlines and some meaningful advances in sports culture by taking maternity leave, then returning to play mid-season. Ultimately, Swoopes participated in 9 of 28 regular season games and played just spot minutes in the '97 postseason. Tina Thompson, meanwhile, was quite promising, but still only 22 years old in a league featuring some more established, more experienced pros. But on that note, Cynthia Cooper. Holy shit, guys. People assumed that after a decade of crushing overseas competition, the 34-year-old guard wouldn't be quite so dominant in this new US league. People were wrong. Cooper led the WNBA by a healthy margin with over 22 points per game. She shot a blazing 41% from downtown and dished aplenty to Thompson down low. On defense, Cooper formed a devilish, ball-hounding tandem with her best friend, diminutive backcourt mate Kim Perrot. The 5'5" Perrot made the Comets roster out of tryouts and quickly graduated from developmental player to vaunted defensive pest and floor leader of the league's best offense. Houston edged the Liberty atop the standings, then demolished them to win the first ever WNBA championship. Cooper capped off her scoring title by winning 1997 regular season and Finals MVP awards. She repeated all three of those accomplishments for the 1998 Comets, and now Coop enjoyed the company of a more experienced Thompson and a fully available Swoopes. Houston went 27-3 in '98 and survived a legit scare from the Phoenix Mercury to win their second title. Oopsie daisy, WNBA, you handpicked most of a superstar trio. You messed up and created a dynasty. These shirts, by the way, are amazing. This season, Cooper once again led the league in scoring, though Yolanda Griffith will take home MVP for a change. The first WNBA All-Star game featured the whole Big Three in the Western starting lineup. The Comets had the league's best record by a long shot, and after faltering in their first playoff game against LA, took control thereafter and cruised into this final three-game series. When they showed up at Madison Square Garden for Game 1 and absolutely wrecked the Liberty behind Cooper's 29 points, everyone braced for a three-peat. And today only heightened that feeling of inevitability. Houston opened on an absurd run. Halfway into the first quarter, their pressure defense forced a loose ball and a tough attempt, which set up this gorgeous Swoopes pass to a Tammy Jackson finish and some vintage Mike Breen impending doom voice.
The Comets right now just blowing out the Liberty.
Look at this score. This is a finals game. Not long before halftime, the Comets took an 18-point lead, and they entered the break still up double figures. This building has never seen a Comets playoff loss, and it has appeared all afternoon like their impeccable playoff record will hold. Somewhere near the court right now is the championship trophy, resting beside President Val Ackerman, who's ready to present it yet again to the only team it's ever known. But even though it looks like it will conclude the same way as the prior two, this finals run is different. This whole season has been. Someone is missing in person, if not in spirit. Over the winter, Kim Perrot visited a doctor because of weakness in her right arm. In February, Perrot announced a diagnosis of brain cancer, which had metastasized from her lung. Ever the leader, Perrot stuck around the team as much as she could. But when she needed to visit Mexico for treatments, Cooper joined her as much as she could. Weeks ago, when Perrot's condition worsened, the whole team left practice early to be by their point guard's side in the hospital. On August 19th, just days before these playoffs began, Kim Perrot died at the age of 32. Cynthia Cooper lost her best friend just 6 months after losing her mother, Mary Cobbs, to breast cancer. This unbelievably difficult season is dedicated to them. A third straight championship would mean so much to Cooper and her Comets. All it will take is one stop here. Granted, it being a one-stop kind of game is pretty surprising. This was once a blowout. To understand this Liberty comeback, first check who's off the floor. While New York dug a deep first-half hole, their centerpiece, Rebecca Lobo, was over here watching, visibly disturbed. After making the final in '97 and slumping a bit in '98, the Liberty were ready to bounce back in '99 under new coach Richie Adubato. Then, Lobo tore her ACL seconds into this season. Literally seconds. But while Lobo has been promoted as the face of the Liberty, she's not their only star. With both fresh and veteran talent, this team proved resilient, all season long and in microcosm today. Coach Adubato has leaned on Vicki Johnson as his first option, gradually shifting the previous top scorer, Sophia Weatherspoon, to a bench role. Both Johnson and Weatherspoon have been pretty quiet today, but they were the only two Liberty players to hit field goals in the first 11 minutes of this game. Johnson's mid-range J in transition was the lonely 2 in that early 17-2 score. And what felt like an hour later, Weatherspoon finished strong through traffic for the hoop and one that made it 17-5. Things were not going well. New York got from there to here because of two newcomers and their oldest veteran. Let's start at the end of that list. Kim Hampton is 36. She played a whole illustrious stint in Europe before the WNBA formed during her career twilight. She's been with the Liberty ever since that first elite draft, but this third season is almost certainly her last. Hampton came into today hurting, and her leg injury appears to still be bothering her. But Hampton has been a force on the offensive glass even through this endgame, and she made some first-half plays that kept this game from slipping away. One crisp baseline jumper from Becky Hammon.
Hampton left open, hits the jumper.
One sturdy finish down low from Crystal Robinson. And those two are the newcomers I spoke of. Hammon is a true rookie, 22 years old, fresh out of Colorado State. The second stringer has been ice cold here in the playoffs, but Coach Adebayo knows from one breakout regular season performance that Hammon can find the net when needed. She splashed a much-needed pull-up three in the first half, and in the second half, she's sunk clutch free throws and drilled this critical three-pointer. But in terms of timely buckets today, no one touches Crystal Robinson. Robinson was a 99 draft pick, but not a first-time pro. After dominating at Southeastern Oklahoma State, Robinson starred in the ABL for the Colorado Explosion, with an X. It's the 90s, remember. When the ABL folded, Robinson entered the WNBA draft. The Liberty made her their 25-year-old rookie. Robinson, like Vicki Johnson, was off in the first half. In the second half, maybe this foul and the three ensuing free throws got her going. Splash, splash, splash. Moments later, Robinson got three the quick way, and suddenly that big Houston lead was 7 points. And here was Robinson again off a nice inbound set, 5 points. And this was only the start. Off two solid screens from Hampton and Sue Wicks, there was Robinson for three at the elbow, 2 points. Robinson baited Houston big Polina Chikova into her fifth foul, then calmly buried two free throws to make it a 1-point game. When Cooper missed inside and Robinson leaked out for a long outlet, she took a heat check and scorched the net.
For three, it's good! Crystal Robinson gives the Liberty their first lead of the game.
Crystal was on fire. She gave New York 13 straight points and, miraculously, a lead. And it was Robinson who got the clutch shot with 17 seconds left, producing the tie score that, well, Tina Thompson ruined just moments later. The Liberty would love to get the ball to Robinson here, but beggars can't be choosers. Down two, Coach Adebayo is out of timeouts. They've got to just go. With 2 seconds left and Houston's usual pressure defense retreating, she is going to have to take this herself. And I'm not sure she wants to. This is Teresa Weatherspoon. Weatherspoon, not Witherspoon, was an NCAA champion and gold medalist in 1988. She, like some others, was already in her 30s when the WNBA formed. But Weatherspoon had been such a star in Europe that she became the second ever Liberty player in the 97 allocation. Ever since, she has been the beating heart of this squad. Weatherspoon has little interest in scoring. She's in New York to defend, to handle, and above all else, to make plays for others with her passing. Weatherspoon regularly ranks among the assist leaders, and this year joined Hampton as an Eastern starter in the first ever All-Star game. Today, the Liberty have frankly needed a bit more from Teresa. Her signature hustle generated this easy bucket off a bad pass, but at other moments, like this squandered transition, Weatherspoon's hesitance to shoot hurt the Liberty.
You got to do something with it when you got a break situation like that. Now you got to run it back out and set it up in the half-court game.
It's no coincidence that the more trigger-happy Becky Hammon got extended minutes. The announcers noticed that shift.
Not taking anything away from Teresa Weatherspoon, but Weatherspoon has not been offensive-minded.
Weatherspoon actually faced a similar situation to this one at the end of the first half. With time winding down, she got the ball, dribbled the length of the floor, and kind of forced a pass instead of pulling up. But now Teresa Weatherspoon doesn't have much choice. The only Comet who isn't already celebrating, Tina Thompson, stayed back on defense to make sure the Liberty couldn't advance the ball too far on the inbound. Weatherspoon's gotta fire up a shot with little prayer of going in. Little prayer of forestalling an inevitable third championship for this dominant, star-studded, day one WNBA dynasty. Nobody would have picked the Liberty to win this game, let alone have a chance. Not after Rebecca Lobo went down moments into the season. Not after the remaining Liberty players dug a deep hole in the first half. But thanks to some heroes, young and old, a player who lives to pass the ball has a chance to at least delay the inevitable with one flick of her wrist. Let's see if the Liberty can push this series to a deciding third game. Welcome to a moment in history.
They've got to go the length of the floor. Teresa Weatherspoon at the buzzer, a three. Oh, she put it in! She put it in! And the Liberty win game two! What a finish!
So, as you might have expected, the Comets did indeed go on to win their third championship. And on that note, we have an episode of Untitled about Becky Hammon if you're interested. Either way, thank you so much for watching.